And we are back here on the Analytical Iowan podcast. Now, as you're listening to this, if you were listening to it on the podcast, it would probably be Friday, November 28th. We're doing a TikTok live. Now, I may still do another podcast. We'll have to see how the rest of the night goes. I say that a lot when I do these lives, thinking I will still have time, and it doesn't always work out. But here we are. We are live on TikTok. Going to be talking news. Going to be talking politics. We got a lot to talk about. Even though it is Thanksgiving, there is still always stuff to talk about. We got so much going on with this country. It is a nonstop process. We've got midterms coming up. We're going to start seeing a big push going toward those midterms. There are special elections happening all the time. We've got the special election in Tennessee. That special election could end up affecting whether or not we have a path toward the majority before the end of this Congress. Democrats may be able to take over the House of Representatives if they can get over 218 members, and we're hearing that more and more members of the Republican side may decide to call it quits. This administration is not being very nice to the Republicans in Congress. They're not. They are treating them like crap. Look what happened to Marjorie Taylor Greene. She dared to say anything bad about Donald Trump, dared to side with the Democrats on releasing the Epstein files, and they ran her out of Congress. Now, she chose to resign on her own, and of course she chose to resign right after she gets her pension. But with all of that, every seat that we can take, if more and more Republicans step away from Congress, we just get closer. It's within reach. They only need 5 pickups. And we have 2 guaranteed coming up. We've got a special election in Texas, and we got a special election in New Jersey. Both of those should be Democratic pickups. That means they only need 3. If they pick up this seat in Tennessee, which it is looking more and more likely, considering it was a seat it was a district Donald Trump won by 22 percentage points, and Donald Trump ends up, or this Afton Bain is currently within 2 percentage points on the polls. Now, if you followed me for a while, you know I don't trust polls. Polls are a little sketchy. They don't always show the true thing of what's going on. You don't know who's doing them necessarily. You don't know who they're talking to, and they only talk to a fraction of people and try to make it sound like they've got a pretty good idea of what's going on. But the fact that there's a 20-point swing from the election results last November to this special election now is huge, right? It is a 20-point swing. I mean, if they pick up even 2 or 3 more percentage points, they could win this seat. And then holding the seat becomes easier once you are a incumbent. That's the word I was looking for. Stalled for a minute. The food coma is starting to kick in. Like a lot of you today, I definitely enjoyed the Thanksgiving dinner. Made way too much, but such is life. We're within striking distance of flipping the House mid-session. And I don't remember the last time that has ever happened. Like, I don't remember hearing about it happening in history. Rebecca says, we had 2 dinners tonight, totally stuffed. Yeah, I get that. I just had the one. And that was more than enough for me. I was telling TJ, we were messaging before I decided to jump on here. I made way too much because it's just me and the dog. And I made enough to feed probably about 8 to 10 people. Realistically, there's a lot. I'm going to be eating on this for days. TJ says it's never happened. Must be talking about flipping the House um, mid Congress. And that's, it really doesn't happen because normally you're dealing with majorities higher than 3 or 4 seats. Remember, when they took over Congress, they only had a 3-seat majority. I think they might have gotten it to 4 at one point, but that was about it. Republicans were dealing with one of the thinnest majorities they've had ever. And it's a problem. They're fighting for their lives at this point, just trying to hold on to their majority. Rebecca says, I wish you could have come here. Yeah, TJ and I were talking about that idea, about me getting out there at some point. And maybe at some point I will get out to Pennsylvania. That'd be fun. TJ says, turkey sandwiches. I could do that. Now, there's going to be plenty of leftovers, I know, around here. And, of course, got to have the dog tax in there. She's going to get a little taste here and there. But TJ says, I won't be surprised if Mike drops in here. It's in his time realm. Maybe. Wouldn't mind seeing Mike drop in. Would be nice having, Mike join in to the conversation. But did you guys see that Mike Waltz, the ambassador to the UN, the dude who was responsible for the Signal chat bullshit? Did you see he comes out and now Donald Trump wants to reimagine the UN? Says they have to clean house at the UN, and they want to try to look at all of the priorities and where the money is spent, etc. And they want to insert more control over what the UN spends its money on because we give them about 25% of their budget. And they're talking about maybe slashing a bunch of that. Now, I don't know how much of that they can cut because of congressional appropriations, right? All money has to go through Congress. TJ says, good luck, Donnie. Yeah, well, it's just another distraction away from the Epstein files. It's another attempt to look like a tough guy coming out on Thanksgiving, day after this tragedy in D.C., and now he's telling the UN, well, we're going to tell you how to run your thing. I'm the tough guy. It's mostly what this is. It's all strategy on their part. They're trying to look tough. Donald Trump wants to look like a big shot. And he's not, right? He's weak, and he's looking weaker and weaker every single day. TJ says, a very suspicious tragedy. Yeah, I hope it wasn't staged. I hope it wasn't planned. And unfortunately, with Donald Trump and the way things seem to work out, it makes you go, maybe. And that's a sad state of affairs right there, that Donald Trump makes us question something like this. This should never be something we question. But remember, that it wouldn't have even happened, potentially. Now, we don't know this guy's motivations. We don't know if he was purposely targeting the military or what was going on here, or if it just happened to be that they happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. But you have this event go on, and if they were targeting the military, well, that doesn't happen if Donald Trump doesn't send the military into Washington, D.C. And if he would have followed the court's order, which told him earlier this week to send the guard home, and not said, well, I'm going to appeal it because I have to be right, maybe this whole event doesn't happen. Now, they're going to try to use it as justification to bring 500 more National Guard troops into Washington, D.C. What good is that going to do? None, other than to get people scared, or attempt to get people scared, which is one of the things they want. They want people scared and afraid and too afraid to stand up and talk out, etc. They don't need to be doing this. They want to, because it is their attempt at being tough and trying to scare everybody into just giving Donald Trump his way and hoping that people will just back off, because Donald Trump is not used to getting pushback. Rebecca says Trump is 100% at fault for having the National Guard there. Yeah, you're exactly right. Those guardsmen didn't need to be there. They didn't. Not at all. They could have been home celebrating Thanksgiving with their families, anywhere else. But instead they were in D.C., all for a show of force. And as Trucker pointed out on Mike's Live last night, that when they're doing yard cleanup and groundskeeping and all the things they were doing that wasn't actively patrolling, that's so outside of their normal realm of training, they were just thrown off their guard. They weren't ready for any of that. Rebecca says, can you talk about Hong Kong? So tragic. I would if I knew what you were talking about, but I haven't heard anything about Hong Kong. So I don't know what that story's about, Rebecca. TJ says $10 says we never hear any more about the prosecution and sentencing. Good chance of that. Especially after Kash Patel comes out and embarrasses himself again today. He embarrassed himself yesterday after the guy was already in custody, saying, well, we're going to do everything we can to catch the guy while he is already in custody, and then comes out and says, well, it was Biden's fault for letting him into the country. But his asylum was approved through Donald Trump's administration. I see TJ already got Greg, but Greg says, I suppose Donald Trump was also responsible for the young lady set on fire in Chicago. I don't know what the young lady set on fire was all about, which story you're talking about there. And I know Greg's already gone. But I don't know what the connection is to Donald Trump. In this case, Donald Trump would be responsible because the Guard didn't need to be there. He is the one responsible for the National Guard being in D.C. doing peacekeeping, who didn't need to be there. They didn't need to be doing any of it. It was all a show of force. That's the difference. But see, MAGAs don't look at things in those kind of scales. They find something closely related and try to call it the same, and then think we're ridiculous. Rebecca says there was a massive fire, 83 dead and at least 200 missing. Well, that's extremely tragic. I'll have to look into that one. But I hadn't even heard anything about that. That is horrible. And hopefully they find as many of the 200 alive as they can. Adam says, oh my God, set on fire. Yeah, I still don't know what Greg was talking about with that story. Lori says, Trump's responsible for all that's going on in the U.S., not Biden, who he keeps blaming. Exactly. Donald Trump is responsible for everything going on. He doesn't want to own any of it. He wants to find ways to shift the blame to Joe Biden. Hell, he'd blame Bill Clinton. He'd blame Jimmy Carter if he could, if it meant getting out of any sort of trouble at this point. Donald Trump never takes the blame for anything he ever does wrong. It's always somebody else's fault. And as things keep getting worse, expect members of this administration to be scapegoated and gone. Kevin says the shooter was also granted asylum by the Trump administration. Exactly. Yeah, his administration was finally approved through the Trump administration, but I thought they weren't allowing anybody in. I thought, they were blocking everybody. So somehow this guy gets through and then does this. Doesn't make a lot of sense. Rebecca says the videos and pics are insane. Yeah, I haven't heard anything about that. So I'll have to look into it. Monty says South Korea apartment fire. Oh, okay, that's the same one. Okay, yeah, that Hong Kong fire. I'll have to look into it. I didn't know anything about it before you brought it up. TJ says it was a CIA black op. Are you talking about the incident in DC, TJ? Crazy as it is, I don't know if you can put it past it. I mean, this administration, they do crazy things. Donald Trump wants to get us talking about something else, and they're going to talk about this for as long as they possibly can. 2, 3, 4 days, whatever, however long they can milk the story, however long it has traction. TJ says that's why you'll never hear about the prosecution. You could be right. You could be right. Sue says, I saw pictures of that fire. It looked horrible. Yeah, I haven't seen anything. It hadn't popped up on my For You page. And I didn't see anything in the headlines I was scrolling. But I think I've got mine mostly set to U.S. politics. Or majorly U.S. politics. So maybe that's why I didn't see it. I will have to look into that. TJ says that's why buildings need fire sprinklers. Yes. Yes. And they need to be working sprinkler systems. Rebecca says he was admitted here because he was a Taliban member that turned to the CIA in exchange for asylum. Yeah, I wasn't sure if he was a Taliban member who wanted help getting out, or if he was an ally, if he was somebody working with us over there. TJ says sprinklers save lives. Makes sense to me. Sue says, despite all this news, I hope you all were able to enjoy your Thanksgiving. I did. Way overcooked. I'm going to have leftovers for days, but that's fine. Means I don't have to cook for the weekend. And given what might be heading our way, they're talking about 12 to 24 inches of snow heading our way this weekend. So I might have to have some, things I can eat that don't require electricity. Hopefully not, but it's entirely possible. Rebecca says he had to be. Talking about the guy that the assailant from DC. Yeah, he probably was a sympathizer. He probably was somebody working with us, which is why he got let in. TJ says happy puppy. Oh, she was very happy. Although I had to give her some of the turkey just because I figured she had to be going nuts while she was... I have to kennel her while I'm at work because otherwise she gets bored and will chew up and destroy everything. And more to protect everything else around the house, and so she doesn't eat something she's not supposed to. And I don't want to pay that vet bill. But she was kenneled probably less than 10 feet from the crock pot where my turkey was cooking. So I'm sure it drove her nuts all day being able to smell that turkey. Lori says, I'm in part of Chicago. Where are you at? I'm in Iowa, about dead center Iowa, and they are talking 12 to 24 inches for the weekend. It could get bad out here. Now, they've said something like that before, and we've gotten enough snow to make a footprint, but I don't know. I haven't heard anything updated other than that 12 to 24. And I didn't even know it was supposed to head our way. I pay somebody to do my sidewalks and driveway and stuff, mostly so it's done around the times I go to work, and I don't have to go out and, I'm not buried and snowed in, etc., etc. Or when I get home, I can just pull into the garage and not worry about it. And the people I use, they reached out to me and they're like, hey, do you want to get added to the list with the snow we've got coming? And I'm like, what snow? So I had to go looking into that a little bit and went, oh, crap, it's going to get bad. This isn't good. Larry says here too, they're talking pretty bad for you too. Well, hopefully this winter storm isn't as bad as what they're saying, and if it does get bad, we'll just have to hunker down, and get through it. I mean, 6 to 12, even 20, 24 at a time for Iowa is a lot. I know TJ, you're out there, and so is Rebecca, who is gonna say, "Oh, that's nothing. That's no big deal. We can do that, in our sleep." But for Iowa and the Midwest, that's a lot at one time. So we will have to just get through it. Be prepared and drive slow. Don't go anywhere if you don't have to. Talk to my folks. It's they're like freaking out about the snow. I'm like, you guys are retired. You have nowhere to be. And just stay put. Stay put, stay safe. Go out in 2 or 3 days when you have somewhere to be. You got your groceries, you don't need to do anything. And you're retired. You don't need to go to work. Just hunker down. Rocky says, I live in rain country. 12 to 24 inches sounds bonkers. Now, I don't know if this math is true. The old adage I was always told is an inch of rain is a foot of snow. Now, I don't know if that actually works out, if that math actually makes sense. But it's if they're saying inch of rain is a foot of snow, that means you would have gotten like an inch or 2 inches of rain. That's not too bad. You can deal with that. Adam says 70 degrees tomorrow. Florida winter beach day. Yeah, you're lucky. We'll be dealing with the snow up here. One advantage to the snow, though, and when it gets super cold, at least the puppy doesn't like to play outside very long. I let her out to do her business. She's out and back in about 30 seconds. She's like, nope, I'm done. She's like, nope, I'm done. Done with that, not dealing with the cold. That's one advantage. Sue says, I drive a school bus, and if they miscall it, we've had to drive in it when we should have stayed. I remember some years, I think I was a freshman, 8th grade, something like that. And we got 14 inches of snow. And they were trying to get to lunch at school so it could count as a day of school. And we already had, by 11 in the morning, I think we had 7 or 8 inches on the ground that day. Shouldn't have had buses out. Shouldn't have had people trying to get kids from school. They knew the storm was coming, but they were trying to make sure we didn't tack it on as a snow day at the end of the year, and it was a mess. Rocky says, okay, that sounds better, talking about a couple inches of rain. Yeah, a couple inches of rain is actually doable, but a couple of feet of snow? Oh, no thank you. Jay says, everybody talking about Obama's birth certificate when they should really be talking about Eric's pants. Yeah. Hey Jay. I don't know. Are they back talking about Obama's birth certificate again? Are they back on that? Obama hasn't been president for what? 9 years? He's out. You know, why are they talking about that? It's just another distraction from the Epstein files if they are. Sue says priorities. Kids' school day counting or lives? Yeah. That's just it. They are looking at, you know, trying not to go to June, and they were trying to push it. Now, that was also in the 90s. And, you know, priorities have shifted a little bit because younger folks, you know, by younger, I'm now talking about people my age, that grew up going to school and that shit, are saying, no, we're not dealing with that anymore. And they're a little more lenient about calling school days off. So, they're going to go ahead and, you know, try to do that kind of thing. Adam says, tryptophan in Turkey has got me going into a coma. Good night, all. Well, good night, Adam. And just a reminder, if you want to catch the rest of this will be up over on the Analytical Iowan YouTube page. The audio should be available up over on Analytical Iowan on Spotify. If I can keep getting the apps I use to post it and do all of that working correctly. I've been having some issues with it, but it should be up tomorrow after I get it downloaded and everything. So you can always check it out over there if you want to catch the rest of the live. Well, we had people in here for a little bit, TJ. We were up to 59 for a minute. Then Jay showed up and everybody ran away. I know you tried, TJ. And I had to take the cheap shot at Jay because, you know, he's out there. Sue says, our district is very stringent. We've gone with all the surrounding districts staying home. Yeah, the community I'm in, they actually... I've lived here 12 years now, and I'm still not used to it. They don't do any in-town busing at all. Parents are responsible for getting their kids to school if you live in town. You have to go through, there's county busing, and then there's the three or four schools here in town that they use. And you either have to get them to their building or you have to get them to one of the other buildings by a certain point in time, and there is shuttles going across town. And we're not even that big of a town. But no in-town busing except, I think, with the exception, I believe, of special needs. Special needs kids do get picked up. Because I've seen that bus around town. But that's it. No busing here in town. Sue says, wow, I have kids that live less than a quarter mile from school. We don't deny anyone. Yeah, they just don't do it. They don't do any busing in town. I'm sure it saves a ton of money for, property taxes and things that they could spend money on other dumb projects on, but I don't know why they don't. They never have as long as I've lived here. I don't even think they have more than a handful of buses overall. Just something weird about this town. But I do think it affects their decisions on whether or not to hold school, especially in the middle of snowstorms. Yep. That's one of the things I like about doing these lives. You never know where the conversation's going to go to. You know, we start out talking about Donald Trump and everything going on in the world of politics, and next thing you know, we're on school busing. TJ says, don't forget about the TikTok shop. Yeah, that seems to be the key word that gets you promoted. I keep getting invites to sell for the TikTok shop, and I haven't done it. And I don't think I'm going to either. It's just, I know you can make a lot of money promoting TikTok shop and doing products, and you can get a whole bunch of stuff for free. I just don't think I want to deal with it. It seems like a bigger hassle than what it needs to be. Sue says we cut 3 buses this year. Yeah. Weird how school districts decide just to do that. Jay says, anybody heard of My Chemical Dependence, Pete Kegsbreath's latest hit? I mean, can't be any worse than any of his other greatest hits. Jesus Christ. It wouldn't surprise me after Kash Patel and Pam Bondi end up being the first couple of scapegoats for Donald Trump to be removed from their positions. Maybe even Kristi Noem. Because they're gonna, as things keep going south for him, he's going to start removing people. And I think once he starts doing that, you are going to see more and more go away. You know, he's going to get even, he's going to get even more and more backlash the more he gets rid of people. But he's not going to find anybody qualified. He just won't. They don't have anybody qualified now. Rebecca says you could sell pants. Yeah, exactly. Maybe that's what I should do. Sue says it had to do with DOE cuts in Washington. Blame Trump. Oh, I do. I fully blame Trump for almost all of the problems we have in this country right now. He wants to make it anybody else's fault but his, but he is fully to blame, and we should lay that at his feet. And I know he's going to hate every minute of that. I don't know that Donald Trump survives all the way to the end of his term. Between his health not being great and his own party turning on him, I mean, he may not make it to the end of the year without his party turning on him and holding an impeachment trial against him. TJ says not a chance. Yeah, I don't think he's going to make it to the end of his term. The way his health looks, and I know you can bounce back from strokes, but he's also not an average person, right? He's not normal. He's high stress. He's high strung out. He did Adderall for years, allegedly. That can't, if that is true, can't be good for his whole system. And you add in all of the other concerns. He doesn't trust home cooked food. He only eats stuff from Walmart or from McDonald's because it's safer for him, which is going to end up making things worse. You have the leg dragging, which is a potential sign of a stroke. You have the face drooping, another sign that he may have had a stroke. He's been given cognitive tests. The whole thing, all of it, when you start putting it all together, it's not painting a good picture of his health. And then you give him the most stressful job in the world, running this country. There's no way. I don't think the stress will allow him to go 3.5 more years. Rebecca says Easter, over under. Well, our friend Ed thought it was going to be today, and as of right now, there's still 28 minutes left in Thanksgiving East Coast time. Ed may still be right yet. We'll have to see. We'll have to give it 28 minutes and see if Ed ends up being right. TJ says it's not stressful if you don't do anything but golf. Well, yeah. But he's not even golfing really anymore. Molly says no one is acting on it. Talking about nobody acting on him, on removing him. We don't know yet. I really think it's going to depend on next month and when the files are supposed to be released. I think the Republicans will use either him covering it up or whatever's in there as their vehicle to move away from him, because I think they would be able to keep control of the MAGA base that way. That they'd be willing to continue to vote for Republicans. If they don't, some of those voters, those MAGA voters, would never vote again, let alone ever vote for a Republican. Or at least not for one that was disloyal to Donald Trump. TJ says he has 28 minutes. Yeah. Wouldn't that be something if somehow in the next 20-ish minutes Ed ends up being correct? Jay says today he did die. They just replaced him with the clone. The clone will die by Easter. That's a little far-fetched, Jay, but I get where you're coming from. That's kind of funny. User credit card number says, well, can just use the auto pen like Joe. And I'm pretty sure by the time I scroll to the bottom of the messages, TJ will have already got him. No? Well, I'll get him. Got him. Yeah. That whole auto pen story was mostly made up by Republicans. It's ridiculous. Rebecca says he has made it more stressful for himself. If he never got into politics, he would benefit. Yeah, he never needed to get into politics. He chose to because he wanted the prestige. He wanted the claim. And he wanted the fame. And I think, honestly, I've said this before, I think he fell ass backwards into the presidency. Donald Trump ran in 2016 with the intention not of necessarily losing, but as a political outsider. I think somebody told him, well, you're a political outsider. The Republicans will never pick you. Go ahead and run. And then you can turn around and, after the campaign, when you finally drop out, you have to wait so much time, and then you can pocket the money. And you can spend all this money on yourself. And he ran as a grift. The man's a grifter. And I think that's what he did. And then all of a sudden he just gained too much steam and there was nothing they could do. Republicans were fucked. Molly says it will be hidden by his handlers. Hidden like Wilson. Yeah. That could be. They're going to try to hide it for as long as they possibly can. But they're not going to be able to hide it forever. We're already seeing enough of how bad of things are going. And given Donald Trump's current state, despite the fact that they are limiting his public appearances and stuff, there's always a chance that it's very visible, very public, like it happens on stage while he's giving a speech or something. It could happen. And that user credit card number, which is already blocked, has dumb comments saying we had somebody in a coma for years. Yeah, no, we did not. That is your guys' talking point about Joe Biden, only because Fox News told you as much. If you'd watch any reputable news source, you would have known about how fit Joe Biden actually was and what he was actually doing. But you prefer to listen to an entertainment source that feeds your hate. Sue says, and he wanted to stay out of jail this time around anyway. Yeah, exactly. He ran to stay out of prison because he thought he could use running as a candidate as a big enough defense, and it turned out he was right. Rebecca says, him becoming president took years off his life. It did. It did. That is one of the hardest jobs and the most stressful job in the world. And two of the side-by-side pictures that I use as a comparison for how stressful and how much the job just ages you. You have the picture of LBJ standing next to Jackie Kennedy on Air Force One, flying back from Dallas with Kennedy's body in the plane. And he's taking the oath of office to become president while, while everything was still going on. And he looks bright, he looks energetic, and ready to go. And then toward the end of his presidency, as Vietnam is raging on and everything's going on and everything's going south, there's the image of him slumped over the desk, just defeated. Those two pictures show how much that job ages you, how stressful it is on you. And somebody in Donald Trump's case who is not healthy is going to have problems. He just is. Add that with him being in poor health to begin with, and I just don't think there's any way he makes it another 4 years. That's not saying Joe Biden potentially would have done any better as far as surviving 4 years. Joe had his own problems. And if you remember, I think I was talking on the Rational Boomer podcast back then, and I even suggested that Joe Biden would only serve about 2 years of this term, and he would have resigned to set up Kamala Harris for a potential 10-year run. And, it wouldn't have been a bad idea. I still think what would have helped Kamala Harris win, and I know there are people pointing out that there are all kinds of inconsistencies that were up there with the election. And if they can prove something beyond a shadow of a doubt that there are problems, then we need to look into it, we need to fix it, and we need to make sure nobody else can do these things again. But it still doesn't matter. It doesn't change the election. It doesn't change who's president. It would still mean he's there. All we can do is fix the problem along the way. Aunt Molly says, Joe's ego got in the way. Kind of. But part of the problem was he was talked into running by the very people that turned on him after that disastrous debate. One of the things I said that should have happened back then is Joe Biden, the day he decided not to run, is he should have resigned, made Kamala Harris the president that day. Let her take over. Sure, she'd only have 6 months of a term, but her being the president, her being the incumbent, would have taken all of the pressure off of electing a female president, a woman president, a minority woman as president, off the table. The historical event would have already happened. She would have had her inauguration. They could have planned for it. He could have said, hey, I'm resigning, effective next Thursday, whatever date they wanted to pick, and let her become president. And you know what? I think people would have accepted her running as the replacement for Joe Biden far better. We wouldn't have heard all this bullshit from people who don't know what they're talking about, there was no primary. There was no primary. But there was a Democratic primary. There was. And the thing is, there were 3 names in the Democratic primary. It was Joe Biden, it was Marianne Williamson, and for at least part of the race, R.F. Kennedy Jr. There was a primary. It's just the simple fact that Joe Biden was winning every primary with 97% of the vote. I think the worst he ever did, I should say. Let me phrase it like that. I think in one of the races he got down as low as 91. That's as low as he got. You just typically do not run against an incumbent president. It typically doesn't happen. Judy says he doesn't care. He's only stressed because of his own circumstances. Oh yeah, all of this is Donald Trump's own making. 100%. Donald Trump set everything up. He's the one pushing the narrative. It's all his own doing. Rebecca says, I agree. If Kamala was prez, she probably would have won. Yeah, it would have made a huge difference. And she could have started putting some of her agenda in place, or seeing what she was trying to put in place, at least, and it would have made a difference. Molly says, name recognition, always important. It is. That's why Chuck Grassley keeps winning here in Iowa. Because people who are my age and older have always known him to be the senator. That name carries weight. Hell, Chuck Grassley does not have to campaign in Iowa to run for senator. He doesn't campaign at all. Runs like no ads. No ads on his own. Like there will be ads attacking his opponents, but never pro Grassley ads really. And he always wins with like 60-some% of the vote. Jay says the Bernie bros wanted Bernie and no one else. Anytime he doesn't win the nomination, they say there was no primary. Yeah, that's part of it too. You got a group of people in this country that want what they want, and if they don't get it and they're not happy, they're going to tank the whole system in the process. It's ridiculous, it's childish, but that's what we're dealing with. If you know, you know, says, hey man, hi everyone. Nice to see you back. I remember you from the last time I was live. Been talking news, politics, like always. Always got a lot to talk about. There's always stuff going on. You got this story of, what's his name? Was it Wickoff? No, that's not right. TJ might remember. What's the name of that guy who was advising Russia on how to sweet talk Donald Trump? He was telling the Russians exactly how to approach Donald Trump and how to get Donald Trump to do exactly what you want. Oliver's mom says he had it right. Steve Witkoff. Okay, I was right. It just didn't sound right, mostly because I couldn't remember the guy's first name. So it sounded wrong. But yeah, when it came to getting the Russia deal for Ukraine, turns around and says, well, yeah, this is how you sweet talk Donald Trump. That's ridiculous, And I see Will's out there. Hey, Will. And he's fired up like normal. Will says, a goddamn real estate agent. Yeah, exactly. But see, he knows how to smooth talk Donald Trump. That's all you have to do. Say nice things, pat him on the back. South Park had it right. In one of the first episodes of the latest season, they had it right. Give him a small gift and say, no, you don't have a small member. That's all it takes. You're a manly man. You're good looking. You're handsome. You're in peak physical condition. Just ply him with compliments. If you know, you know. says, tell him he's pretty and he melts. Exactly. That's all it takes. Feed his ego a little bit. Jay says he's dim and he's a plotty. That's really rude in French, but he's not a diplomat, that's for sure. Yeah, I don't know what that means, but okay. Yeah, you're right though. He's not a diplomat. He's not smart. But the one thing, I will give him credit for one thing. That I give Donald Trump credit for is because he doesn't use big words and he talks very plainly, and in part another sign of potential cognitive problems is his limited vocabulary, right? You know, he always says, oh, she's a nasty woman. Oh, things are going great. They're great. Best economy. Great. Good. You know, very limited word choice. Because he's not using huge words and he talks very plainly and gives them repeatable slogans, the uneducated masses loved him. Will says Trump is becoming the crypt keeper day by day. Yeah, we were talking about that a little bit ago, Will. And we were looking at the clock. It's 11:48. For Ed to be correct, we're now down to 12 minutes. Oh, I just got a restriction. Wonder for what? Misinformation that may cause moderate harm. Where was the misinformation? Well, it popped up on mine. It says I'm not currently eligible for the For You feed. I wonder what they got me for on misinformation. Not that it matters. I've got about as many people as I normally have in here anyway. Jay says you're scaring them. Maybe. Right before that popped up, though, we were talking about Ed and Ed's prediction. If Ed's going to be right, we have 10 minutes. I don't think Ed's going to make it. But I'm sure that was a Trumper snuck in. Probably reported me. They're getting a little smarter. That whichever one did it this time didn't actually drop a comment so we could get them banned. So I've been watching the comments. TJ has been getting almost everybody. We don't let the Trump humpers in. You know, block them all, because all they do is report everything and get you taken down. Will says probably scrolling, saw something reported live. Yeah, it could be. That very well could have been exactly what happened. They were scrolling, saw something they didn't like, heard something they didn't like me saying. Problem is, I speak the truth, right? We all pretty much do. You know, we don't give the misinformation that they actually believe in, but TikTok, what they do is they take the review and automatically flag it right away and go from there. Then you got to appeal down the road and hope you win your appeal. Sue says, but they can't handle the truth. No, they can't. Makes me think of the scene from, was it A Few Good Men? And you can't handle the truth. I think that was A Few Good Men. Maybe not. Maybe I'm thinking of a different movie. But I know somebody out there knows which movie I'm thinking of. Thank you for the roses. Oliver's mom says it was. Yeah, okay. So it was A Few Good Men. Will says, yeah, the truth to a Trumplican is like holy water to a vampire. Yeah, pretty much. Did you see he's trying to come up with a way to combine Trump and Republican? And he couldn't come up with Trumplican, which we've been using forever. We've been using that. I've seen people going back to his first term using that one. And he couldn't come up with that. I mean, don't get me wrong. Not trying to combine Trump and Republican, but Boomer still got the best name for that group ever. Just saying. He came up with a great one. If you know, you know says there's a reason they want to squash the arts. Yeah. Oliver's mom says he doesn't want to use what we use. Maybe. Brent says how it goes. It goes pretty good. How about you, Brent? Will says arts means free thinking. Yeah. Oh no. Brent's working. Oh, nice. I'm glad you could join me while you're at work. Yeah, well, when you say that arts means free thinking, makes me remember, how did that quote go from MASH? What about individuality or something like that? And, Frank Burns goes, well, I think individually is great as long as we're all doing the same thing exactly the same way or something like that. So many good quotes you can pull out from all kinds of places that fit what's going on right now. And narratives and stories that, you know, would work. Oliver's mom says, sounds like Frank Burns. I know it was a Frank Burns quote. I just can't remember the exact way it's phrased. I haven't seen that episode in a while. Jay says, these ghouls can't handle the truth. No, they can't. They don't want to handle the truth. They want their fictitious narrative. And, you know, it is what it is. I mean, they want to talk about affordability for Thanksgiving and everything else. Truth of the matter is that Thanksgiving dinner they were trying to compare. Now, Donald Trump doesn't shop at Walmart. I guarantee you he's probably never stepped foot in a Walmart in his life. But they want to compare the two dinners. They're not the same. Not the same ingredients. There's like a 25 or a 50% difference in the number of ingredients. And they switched out name brand for store brand. So of course it's going to look cheaper if you're not including everything. Will says the logical song from Supertramp. I'm not sure what that is. Will says something happening here, Buffalo, Springfield. I don't know what you mean there, Will. Molly says they want their hate. They do. Oh, they definitely do. Oliver's mom says they think that if you say something enough, it must be true. Exactly. That is their logic. You say it long enough and loud enough, it becomes the truth. Rebecca says individuality is fine as long as we do it all together. Frank Burns. That's the quote I was looking for. Well, it's the songs for times from the past. Yeah. Oliver's mom, 1987, says, but no one did an actual comparison, one for one on the food list. No, they didn't do a full comparison. But once you saw it had fewer items and they switched out name brand for store, automatically you knew it couldn't be the same. There's no wonder it was cheaper. Will says Walmart is not an economic standard. No, it's not. And again, somebody gave Donald Trump that talking point of, hey, talk about this. Show them that things are more affordable. And then, you go to the store and go get your own stuff. Easily proven wrong. Will says it's simple BS for a simple mind. Exactly. There was somebody on here, a creator, was talking about doing a simple and easy Dollar Tree dinner for 6 for under $20. Was it great? No. Comparatively. But it was going to be a Thanksgiving meal. It had pretty much everything involved. And one of the Trumplicans came in there and said something like, well, you can get turkey for 49 cents a pound anywhere, and just a whole bunch of nonsense. And the number of response videos I saw to that comment of people just going into Walmart and showing them 97 cent a pound turkey, showing, okay, where are you getting 49 cent a pound turkey? Just don't happen. I mean, even 97 cents is pretty good anymore for turkey, even this time of year. The price of everything is going up. Well, it says I paid 98 cents Jennie-O fresh. Oh, nice. I paid a lot more. I think I paid 2 something a pound. But that's because I only got the turkey breast because it's all I needed just for me and the dog. And getting only a partial turkey, obviously you pay a lot more. So it is what it is. Rebecca says we bought a cooked turkey, greasy. It was $97. Nice. Brent says I paid $147 for 20 pounds. What? That seems very high for turkey. Sue says BJ's gave coupons for free turkeys if you spent $150. Okay, that's pretty good. One of the store chains here in Iowa, every year, they've done it for over 20 years now. If you buy a ham, a particular brand of boneless ham, 5-pound boneless ham, that you would get a 12 to 14 pound turkey for free. No limit for how many times you could go back and do it. And a lot of people were doing that. Okay, Brent says organic. Fresh from a turkey farm organic. Okay. That might explain that price tag on that turkey. I bet it was delicious, but Little bit out of my price range. But also, I don't need a whole turkey. With it being just me and the dog, all I needed was the little turkey breast I got. Will says, I believe Black Friday is going to be a disaster. Yeah. And, well, on the East Coast, we've already hit Black Friday. I haven't seen a news story pop up, saying Ed was right, so I guess Ed didn't make it. Ed's prediction didn't come true. What a shame. Brent says family of 5 plus 2 dogs. Okay. Can't go wrong with a dog. Rebecca says we have Giant Eagle stores here. Have to spend $3.50 to get a free turkey. Yeah. This time of year, almost every chain, from what I can see, does some kind of get a free turkey if you do whatever. It's a big marketing strategy, and it usually works. If you know, says, I've stopped myself from purchasing since Monday. It's hard but necessary. Yeah, I haven't bought much, and I don't have a lot of... I've got some disposable income, don't get me wrong, but right now I'm focusing on paying other things and not focusing on going out and purchasing a bunch of stuff I don't need. I've got a wish list a mile long, but that's another story. And I'm not going to go out and buy anything on Black Friday. I haven't seen any of the deals that look that great. Nothing jumping out at me. One almost got me. There was one for Uber Eats. Had a $25 off retail coupon. And I was like, okay, that doesn't sound too bad. And I was going to I looked into it a little more, but you had to buy $75 worth of stuff to get 25 off. So you're still spending 50. I'm like, no, okay, I'm already out there. And then I looked at what stores it was available at. Just Lowe's and Best Buy. Nope, don't think so. Not even going to take advantage. Not even if I can save 25 bucks. It's just not worth it. But now, in my area, you can get Dollar Tree delivered on Uber Eats. Now, if I could have gotten 25 bucks worth of stuff for free from Dollar Tree, I might have considered that. That's a pretty good deal. Oliver's mom says, my brother, sister-in-law, and nephews work for Costco. They each get a free turkey every year. That's a lot of turkey. Aunt Molly says, you still have West Coast and Hawaii. Technically, you got an hour till it hits Black Friday here in the Central time zone as well. So maybe we'll still see something pop up yet. Will says Trump wants to replace the reflecting pool. Is that true? According to the article I read yesterday and the story I did on it, yes. Haven't said what he wants to do or how he wants to replace it. Of course, tried to blame Joe Biden and said we'd be free from the problems of the Biden administration and the Biden architecture and all, I don't know, something like that. It was all about Biden. Biden didn't do anything with the reflecting pool. It's looked pretty much the same since the 1920s. But Donald Trump can't leave well enough alone. Knowing Donald Trump, maybe he wants to make it deeper and put in a jacuzzi, make it a big giant hot tub. Who knows? Rebecca says, I work 3 hours a week at Home Depot and we got a ham every year for Christmas. Nice. Nice. It is amazing when that all works out. And places do that kind of thing. I worked for a grocery chain for a long time. And about the best we ever got was like a one shopping trip during the holiday season. You could get like a 20% discount. That was about the best we got. Will says it's dementia. Yeah, it is. he's got dementia. He's suffering some kind of mental instability, maybe a stroke, maybe multiple. And I hope that when Democrats are back in power, they go after him and the other Republicans every bit as hard as what he went after and what the other Republicans went after Joe Biden for, even though they were making shit up as they went along. Trucker T says, I got eggs and fruit. Hey, Trucker, nice to see you. Eggs and fruit isn't bad. Now, eggs are down considerably compared to a year ago, but still. Brent says, I love Home Depot. Yeah. I mean, if they're doing stuff like that, that's great. That's amazing. Oliver's mom says, how about the plane? Yeah. You know, he's got this plane that he's getting, and it's getting retrofitted on our dime, and it's going to ultimately get given to the Trump Museum at the end. You know? Completely ridiculous, completely unnecessary, big giant waste of money. Will says, Jelly of the Month Club, Christmas Vacation. Oh, yeah. Trucker T says, did you talk about the guy's name being Googled several times before the incident? Crazy name to Google randomly. I hadn't heard about that. But if that's true, that is crazy. It's insane to think about. And we were talking about, is this staged? Is there something there? Don't know. We'll have to see what comes out about his motivations as the investigation continues, as he moves forward to trial. If he moves forward to trial, I know there's some doubt about that. Brent asks, any news on the ballroom? Nothing new. Except none of it makes sense. None of it makes sense because they're talking 90,000 square foot ballroom. Now, I Googled about how many people a 90,000 square foot ballroom should hold. And I think the answer came out to be around $3,000. But by every estimate they're saying, when they're talking about it, we're only hearing 650 to 999. Those numbers don't add up. Oliver's mom says the ballroom might not be done before he leaves office. It probably won't be. They were saying it may not be done in 4 years if he even leaves on time. And we've been talking about how his health isn't great. He may not make it until the end of his term. And you add all of that together, it may not get done. Now, what do they do in the meantime? Well, if Donald Trump doesn't make it to the end of his term, you know, do they just rebuild the East Wing? If J.D. Vance takes over, J.D. Vance would be smart to rebuild the East Wing, which is probably why you won't. But they really should. They really should rebuild the East Wing and let this moronic ballroom go away. And, you know, but still, you know, they could rebuild the East Wing, put a bigger ballroom in, and call it good, you know. I don't know, we'll have to see. Rebecca says, an Afghani guy who helped the CIA in 2021 happened to get asylum when no one else does. Yeah, he gets asylum under the Trump administration. And You know, now this happens. Very weird. The whole thing is very strange. Aunt Molly says, need room for kitchen, dance floor, and First Lady offices. Well, I didn't hear they were putting in any of the First Lady offices. I thought it was just going to be the ballroom itself and maybe some kitchen area. But that's about it. Oliver's mom said, just saw one of the National Guard members died. I heard that, but also earlier when I saw the article on it, the only person I heard talking about it was Donald Trump. That he was told right before he went out to go give the speech that it had happened. I hadn't heard it from another source independent of Trump. And I take everything he says with a major grain of salt. So did we hear that from another source then? Molly says it's on MS Now. And Oliver's mom says local news here in Florida just said it. Okay. Well, I'll have to look into that. Because I hadn't, like I said, the last I had seen was an article that just said it came from Donald Trump. Rebecca says, no chance of some deal for his family, right? Were you talking about the guy from Afghanistan getting a deal to maybe bring his family here? Who knows? This whole situation is tragic, and it didn't need to happen at all. You know, this whole thing with what happened in Washington, D.C. could have been avoided simply by Donald Trump not activating the National Guard. Because it does appear that it was a targeted attack. Trucker T says, that guy was part of an Afghan hit squad. Didn't care who he took out. Oh, so you think he was going to just take out anybody and everybody or anybody that he ran into? Drucker says, can't say because of TikTok. Yeah, we've already gotten flagged once. Rebecca says, it isn't likely that he has been here for 4 years as a sleeper and just took out 2 people. Not likely, but the whole situation is just bizarre in its own right. But it does do one thing that Donald Trump wanted. It has taken the focus off the Epstein files. Trucker said you meant his previous time in Afghanistan. Okay, that makes some more sense. Molly says, Kirk didn't work. Yeah. Yeah, no, it didn't. In fact, all that whole situation did was just shine a light right onto J.D. Vance. And as they shone a light onto him, you know, they're looking at his relationship with Erica Kirk. And people are speculating that he may be dumping his wife, getting a divorce quietly, and moving on. And that, you know, maybe he's going to try to move on and make himself more appealing to the rest of the MAGA base. Rebecca says, we give you asylum, help your family in exchange for a favor. I mean, maybe. Trucker T says, my circles tell me this guy and a group of others were really bad people. They would do what others would not. I mean, you might know better than me, Trucker. You have contacts with people that I don't have contact with. I'm just saying this whole situation doesn't make any sense at all, right? This all happens. It works as a perfect distraction going into Thanksgiving to not be talking about the Epstein files. We're not talking about the economy. You know, they're not talking about all of it. And what a lot of people are talking about is this event. This event that happened in Washington, D.C., this tragedy, is dominating the news cycle at least for a couple of days. Drucker says his question is, why was he in D.C.? He lives in Washington State. Too fishy for me. Yeah. Like I said, there's tons of things that make us question about it. And I wonder if the plan was for him to not be... If there was a plan involved. Now, we don't know yet for sure that this is the case, and we may never know if it was the case. But if it was a setup, if it was staged in any way, shape, or form, you know, maybe the plan was for him to not get taken alive. You know? Maybe that was an idea. Oliver's mom says, I said that on Mike's Live last night. Just a big distraction. Yeah, it was. But that's all Donald Trump's got left. He's trying to distract from the files at every turn, at every chance, because it's all he's got left. He knows that these files are probably going to be his undoing. The Republicans are probably going to take them and either use his attempt to cover them up or use whatever's in them about Donald Trump as their way to go against him. You know, they end up moving on Donald Trump and just finally impeaching and removing him. And the Republicans doing it using the files as their justification. I still think that's the end goal here with the Epstein files. It's the one way, it's the one card the Republicans have where they can move against Donald Trump and not lose the MAGA base. Oliver's mom asks, has the guy's identity truly been confirmed? I don't know. Trucker T says, yes, they say he had a CIA badge on him. Not sure if that's true or not, though. Yeah, and that's the thing. We're hearing so many conflicting reports right now in the last couple days about this. Nobody truly knows what's going on, and that's kind of amazing to think about. You had the governor of West Virginia coming out saying that they both passed, and then walking it back saying, well, I guess they didn't. They're in critical condition. Now we hear one of them tonight has passed. There's so much confusion about what is going on with everything. This is unreal. Aunt Molly says, need to give it some time. Yeah. We'll have to give it time, see what comes up. Oliver's mom says they originally said he had no ID. Again, more confusion. We don't know what's really going on. Is this more like what happened with Charlie Kirk, where they said they caught the guy 3 times before they actually caught the guy? Don't know. We'll have to see. The amount of incompetence by this administration is ridiculous. Trucker T says, he said that the suspect was on the loose all while he was captured. Insanity. Yeah. And Kash Patel may be one of the first victims of this administration. The first one to find himself on the outs and fired looking for a new job. And it wouldn't be like Mike Waltz, who gets promoted to ambassador somewhere. No, Kash Patel would just be gone. Bren says, Dumpy said he might go to her funeral. Yeah, but if he goes to the funeral, he's going to turn it. It's going to be like the Charlie Kirk funeral, where he turns it into a Trump-based rally and makes it all about himself. And hopefully, he's just told no. The family says, we want a private funeral and we don't want you there. Which is a weird thing to say, but still. Trucker T says he's too busy riding in pink Lego cars with Christie on our dime. Yeah. Yeah. Kash Patel, Christie Nome, Pam Bondi, and maybe even Hegseth. They all may be on the way out before the end of next year, before the midterms. Oliver's mom says Kash shut down the first press conference before everyone could speak. Yeah, either he didn't want something getting out, he wanted to make sure they had their story straight, who knows? There's so much confusion with this whole situation, it's ridiculous. Soupy says he already turned it into himself and how he did in the state she's from. Yeah. Donald Trump makes everything about himself. Trucker T said we should all demand a do-over. Problem is there's no mechanism for a do-over. We don't get that choice. The only thing we can do is make sure we put Democrats in power in the midterms to block anything else he does, and then turn out en masse in 2028 and put a Democrat in office so we can turn around and fix the mistakes and fix the problems we have here. Rebecca says to save face, his job, or avoid a leak. Oh, talking about Kash Patel cutting out the press conference early. Possibly all of the above. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here. I've been going about 90 minutes. Been doing this a little longer than, or a little later than I normally would go. I want to thank you all for joining me today. And just a reminder that the video and the audio for this will be up over on YouTube and Spotify tomorrow. I'm planning to do more of these lives. Don't know what a schedule is going to look like for them. Just whenever I have time and nothing else going on. So I want to thank you all for joining me. It was a great conversation. And I hope you have a great night. And I will catch you the next time I go live.